Hello, friends. So we are still catching our breath after last night's chaos, that kind of drama. It's at such a high bar. So could Madrid, Juventus, Dortmund and Monterrey, and just as crucially, Julian Laurent, Liaz Bouzidi and Umir Irfan continue this level of quality content? Well, we're about to find out. One thing that we need to admit across the board when it comes to DAZN and at the press is that we got our predictions seriously wrong when it comes to last night and all those shocks. But we, fortunately, weren't alone. Not just us, and DAZN did them dirty. Check this out.
Well, I think I know the answer to this question, but Gail, Man City or Al Hilal?
3-0 City.
3-0 City. Callum?
City win 2-0.
2-0.
Team Man City will be too strong for Al Hilal, definitely.
The world of social media. A tough night for the guys doing the match coverage. Fortunately, we were reviewing instead of previewing in depth there.
What is it he did?
Come on. This prediction, Lark, it's not easy though, Jules. Back up your good friend Gail there.
Yeah, absolutely. It's not easy. There's the biased side of you, especially when you used to play for a team or you support another team. Yeah. And as we've seen in football, a lot of things can happen. Unpredictable things.
Absolutely. Did DAZN Football, the Twitter account, of course, did they do them dirty?
Absolutely not.
No? This is the game.
Love and war, and they would have done it to us. Anyone can get it.
Welcome to our world. Well, fortunately, we're all going to be predicting every single game that's left in the tournament very, very soon. In this show, in fact, let's have a look at the headlines from today. Of course, you guys can get involved as well using the hashtag CWC. Right, Real Madrid's commanding second half saw off Juventus and secured their spot in the quarter-finals. They're through. And not just Real Madrid, Dortmund have dispatched of Monterrey in Atlanta, arranging a tantalising quarter-final matchup with Real. But sadly, there will be no brotherly matchup, with Job seeing yellow. OK, so first game of the day was a clash of two European giants as Juventus took on Real Madrid for a place in those quarter-finals.
A place in the quarter-final is the prize here as two European giants meet in South Florida. Real Madrid against Juventus. Valverde, four in the middle in white. Good ball, Bellingham! Good save by Gregorio, and just about kept away from Gonzalo Garcia. Driven by Valverde, great save. Oh, it's a lovely hit. And a very, very good save by Di Gregorio. Bellingham, good save. Vinicius Junior, Tchouaméni was beaten in the air. Howson hit it really well. Vinicius Junior's ball in. Alexander-Arnold. Oh, it's in! It's a fabulous header from Gonzalo Garcia. Vinicius Junior getting away from Locatelli. Cutting inside, Locatelli, and the overhead kick! Oh, it's a great save. Well held up and driven just wide. Nico Gonzalez barely touched the ball since he came on, but he caught this all right. Tchouaméni, oh, tipped around. Yet another save from the man who's keeping Juventus in this game. And Real Madrid are into the quarter-finals of the FIFA Club World Cup. Xabi Alonso's side head to the Big Apple.
So just a 1-0 victory there, Garcia with the goal, but it was a cracking game of football and everyone was talking, and that man Garcia was the man that a lot of them were talking about. Great finish, and he's come a long way, hasn't our boy? From asking for a photo in 2018 to scoring for him in 2025, Xabi Alonso and Gonzalo Garcia were amazing at the 2025 FIFA Club World Cup. There you go, amazing how it can all change. So, a cracking game, two giants of football, and tactically absolutely fascinating. When we look at the lineups here, two Turkish starlets were taking our eye. Arda Güler in this brand new role, and Yildiz for Juventus, who caused a lot of problems. We're going to talk about both. Let's start off with Arda Güler, Liez, because he was sensational today, wasn't he?
I'm absolutely loving the way he's playing right now. Honestly, he's at the heart of the midfield for Real Madrid, and it almost feels like at times everything is kind of going through him. There's moves where Real Madrid are stringing together 30 passes, and at the heart of it, Arda Güler is just getting so many touches. If we take a look at some of these clips, it's the Arda Güler show in midfield, man. And what I really think I like the most about him, we touched about this last week, is just how often he looks to split the lines and go forward. And I touched on this last week, but I don't think there's a single player in Madrid's midfield that they can call upon other than Luka Modric, who really kind of has the ingenuity and the creativeness that Arda possesses in midfield. This is a wonderful bit of trickery to kind of buy himself a yard. And I really am happy to see that he's taken this Club World Cup by storm. And I think Jules can kind of appreciate this, but it really showcases how important a manager is to a player's development. Because I want to kind of link it to Enrique and Dembele. Enrique has completely transformed Dembele's career by giving him the trust and finding a role that he can absolutely thrive in. He had a Ballon d'Or worthy campaign. And in Alonso, he's completely changed Arda Güler's fortunes, because you look at how influential he is in the team now compared to under Ancelotti, who he just really wasn't in favor with. It's night and day. And at the moment, you look at the guys who seem indispensable for this Real Madrid team, Vini, Fede Valverde, Jude. I think you can make a real big argument that Arda Güler is also in that conversation, which just a month ago seemed unthinkable.
Yeah, I think he was having a lot of fun, but he was also quite serious with it, which 100%. I liked. He's there for business. And when it comes to Alonso coming in and making a real difference, he's a player that was sort of seen as that attacking midfielder, but Alonso's able to see a different profile in him. And even that sort of new Modric role, are we sort of seeing the heir to Modric here?
Yeah, I think so. We said it before when he played there. There's clearly, in the terms of passing qualities, the way he sees the game, and okay, he's not the strongest physically, so in duels he might defensively struggle a little bit, and he will have to work on that side. Even we saw today earlier on, he got dribbled past too easily, so that will have to improve. But certainly in possession, I think he's got everything to run games, to boss that midfield, and to just impact and dictate the pace of the game.
Yeah, you were touching on maybe that from a defensive point of view, is he at that Modric level? Modric's probably a bit understated when it comes to that defensive side of it and the stamina that he's got. But I thought he got about the pitch really, really well and had a great game in terms of dictating the play for Real Madrid side. It was a game that you felt that quality was really, really high. Let's get to Yildiz then, because we're going to show you a clip right this second, all being well, and it shows how brilliant Yildiz is, but it also highlights a problem that Amir's going to reveal here. Because, first of all, in terms of his awareness in that left sort of half space, and look at his quick feet here. It's absolutely gorgeous stuff to be able to have that awareness and see it and play that pass. But there was a problem at play here, wasn't there, Amir?
Yeah, you can see, obviously, Rudiger's been pulled out because Kolo Muani from centre-forwards moved all the way out. Trent's in two minds. Does he pick up Yildiz or does he pick up Cambiasso, who's dropped off way deeper, and he kind of goes halfway? Look at the space between the centre-backs. It's 18 yards. It's a huge area. And given those movements from Juventus, Yildiz can run through those lines that in those big spaces between the centre-backs. And those spaces were really problematic for Real Madrid to deal with initially. Tchouaméni down that centre defensive position, couldn't handle that pressure that Kolo Muani was providing. And then again, followed him, but he was spun in behind, and that run that Kolo Muani made was brilliant, a big chance that he should have put away in that first minute. Yeah,
I mean, it could have been different. And to sort of illustrate what Alonso then did to change it and solve it, there was a cooling break, and then there was all the hands over the mouths, and there was notes, and there was waving, and there was pens, and then Alonso fixed it. Yeah. And what we've got here, we've kind of zoomed in a little bit on the pitch here, and of course, Real Madrid, you can see their defence here, and Yildiz in that position there where he's causing a lot of trouble with Kolo Muani. And as you say, we've just seen it from those clips. Kolo Muani was making life very difficult for Tchouaméni when it was just the two of them. And with Rudiger on this right-hand side, if Kolo Muani moved across as well, we saw the movement from Rudiger in terms of him moving across, that double width. And so it was a bit of a problem. Yeah. So what was the solution, Amir?
Well, the solution was quite genius from Xabi Alonso, to be honest. Tchouaméni in that central centre-back position, as he started, ended up moving to that right centre-back position. And not only that, he kind of moved forward and it almost became a four at the back at times. You know, Rudiger's really strong at jumping and pressing players from that wide centre-back position. We've seen that all the way back in his Chelsea days, hence why he probably started with that. But Yildiz was causing so many problems, and Tchouaméni moving into that position allowed Xabi Alonso to, one, get him into midfield in possession, but two, have him follow Yildiz around the pitch and, you know, really nullify his influence. And we've got some clips to illustrate just how well Tchouaméni did do that and his general performance throughout the rest of the game. So, as we see, the ball goes into the middle and Rudiger applies pressure.
Look at that
against,
press there.
Yeah, against Kolo Muani better than Tchouaméni did. They get the ball back, Real Madrid. And then again, you can see Tchouaméni now, who's moved into a midfield position in that double pivot. And it's more of a back four for Real Madrid, outlined here. So it's certainly a completely different shape in that second half from Real Madrid. There's that following movement, that man-to-man marking from Tchouaméni on Yildiz all the way to that left-hand side, which Rudiger obviously wouldn't feel comfortable doing. And then we see here, he drops back into that back line and forms a back five when Yildiz pushes up. And a minute later, Yildiz gets substituted, and that really highlights the effectiveness of that tweak for the whole game, but also nullifying one of Juventus's most strong players.
Absolutely, yeah, because it was difficult. It was a bit awkward. And they had 4 shots in the first 23 minutes. And then after that, only 2 shots. So this is Alonso really kind of putting his imprint on this team, seeing problems, creating solutions. And then from there, what's really nice, Jules, is the balance of this team going forward. Both Bellingham and Valverde have looked really, really good here. And so, as you can see, the lineups in front of you again, this is Real Madrid in possession. And one thing that they did that was really, really nice was that they would sort of move the team over to one side of the pitch. Why was this so important, Jules? And why did this sort of facilitate both Trent, Valverde and Bellingham?
So, out of possession, we've just explained, they found a solution. With the ball now, Alonso explained after the game that he felt Juventus were very compact and preventing Real Madrid from playing the way they wanted. So they basically wanted to attract as many Juventus players as they could on one side. As you see there, you highlighted on that left-hand side, if you want, from the attacking side of Real Madrid, to exactly there, as many Juventus players and, to some extent, Real Madrid players, to then be able to switch the ball completely on the other side for Trent and Valverde or Trent and Bellingham to have a bit of space, a bit of freedom there, and to do the damage on that side, being isolated in a way, 1v1 or 2v2, which is something that we also saw Xabi Alonso's Bayern Leverkusen doing the last 2 seasons, really, with Wirtz and Xhaka or wide players, Grimaldo, Frimpong, doing like that. And that worked a treat.
It did, and it gave him real options, because you've got Valverde who could kind of underlap and use that space there and support, or overlap as well. And then in terms of just swapping the two, because both sort of dovetailed, didn't they? Bellingham could go and do it as well. And then you've got Valverde with the ability to get forward. We're going to look at that in a second. But Bellingham, if he was over there, could also make that run into the box and had some moments in the game as well. And, of course, as we saw from the goal, Trent able to make that cross for someone like Garcia, who's great in the box as well. But Valverde, the captain, leader legend, his numbers are going to go up. He looks really good, and he's been able to enjoy himself in a new way, because there's such a balance to what's being offered from him now.
Yeah, balance, and to be very complementary with Bellingham, with Trent, and this is clicking a little bit, and we will see on the clips an incredible game again for Valverde. We know he's a wonderful player, but when he's able to basically be everywhere and do everything, you see them, he realizes where the space was, make that run, then finds Bellingham again, who really should do better and probably score. Here he is again, circle, you can see everybody on the left-hand side. What does that leave him? He could shoot, or he could play the ball to Trent on the other side. This is a wonderful ball for Vinicius, and really, we talked about the Güler show earlier, it was a bit of the Valverde show tonight too, and he's at the start of it, he's at the end of it, he creates, he recovers the ball, you see him, he's been running for 60 yards, he's again in the box, and that stamina that he has, he tries the overhead kick, which in the middle of 4 Juventus players is a wonderful piece of skills, really. And again, he's there, he can turn, and I guess by then Juventus were a little bit all over the place and gave him far too much freedom, like for Güler, like for other players, Vinicius too. But that's the 89th minute, just before he's coming off. And by then he's playing on the right-hand side after all the substitutions from Alonso, and he's still able to run and get a corner. A wonderful performance again from him.
And I think with Fede as well, too, he almost allows you to kind of shift in between systems and formations at will because of how many different roles he can kind of play. He can play as a right winger, he can play in a 3, he can play in a 2. He is, for me, the most versatile midfielder in the world. And you see some of those shots as well, too. Yeah. Can anyone strike a ball purer than Fede Valverde? I don't
It's
think
close,
so.
isn't it? And we were talking about Marmoush, maybe that kind of player as well. But
Fedor's
yeah,
a level, man.
Kai, our producer, always says that Valverde strikes the ball like he hates it. Yeah. And I think that's absolutely spot on. With Valverde then, because we're kind of trying to figure out, obviously, in a team full of stars, is he going to be the star of this team?
I think it's really interesting when you look at a player like this, because whenever new managers come in, the hardest working players almost always get selected because your manager wants to kind of make that statement. If you don't work hard, you're not going to play for me. We know Real Madrid are a team in general that have players who might not press as much, and Xabi Alonso really wants to focus in on that. But when you've got a player who feels like they encapsulate that stardom of Real Madrid, but also works as hard as he does, I mean, it's a perfect match for Xabi Alonso and this new project. I think he might almost be the face of that in and amongst all of those stars in general.
Like some of those players become the identity of the team, and he has spoken about, he's used the word collective so many times, you wonder if that's going to be a part of it. Obviously, Bellingham's got that energy as well. In terms of the stars of the previous regime, it was kind of all about Mbappe last year. He did come on, Jules. How do you think he did?
Yeah, first game in the month after his illness. He went to hospital. He lost 5 kilos. So we wanted to see him coming back on. He played 25 minutes, 30 minutes. We see him coming on there for Gonzalo Garcia, who obviously scored the winning goal in there. And it was a slow return, let's call it that way, from Kylian. Not too many
Finding his feet,
runs.
wasn't he?
Yeah, exactly. He played it very simple. You see there the 1-2 with Vinicius. His first touch is not great. This is maybe where he's at the best, and we will see more and more as he's gained fitness. That overlap there, big run into that space. Then he could have come inside onto his right foot shooting. Maybe he's not there yet in terms of fitness to try to play that ball again there. He plays it wide to Vinicius. The ball is going to almost come back to him, but he's in the middle of 6 or 7 players from Juventus. It's very difficult for him. So we didn't see too much of him, a few touches. This is, for example, a lovely setup for the shot of Tchouaméni. And again, in terms of stretching the defense, not so much. He stayed very much on the edge of the box, which is a position that he loves having. And we will need more fitness from him to have a better impact. But at least he came back, and it's another option for Xabi Alonso.
Yeah, I'm intrigued to see how this plays out, because it did feel a little bit with Ancelotti's style that he was indulged somewhat last year. And the tone's been set a little bit that it's not going to be that way when it comes to this team, which leads us to a big question. So who should Alonso start in the next game? Something that we probably never thought we would put forward. But Gonzalo Garcia is on fire right now. He's scored 3 goals. He's got 1 assist. His goal was his 10th touch in the game. That was in the 54th minute.
Striker.
Yeah.
He's got 75 minutes in La Liga during his career. He's already had 292 in this competition. And for the collective, Amir, he has been very, very useful. Why would you change it?
Well, yeah, I'm actually of the camp where I think we, stick with him in this tournament. I kind of go back to some of the cup tournaments throughout the season when you've got a second keeper playing. I think the manager should, respect and kind of reward them for that consistency and trust those players a little bit, because it, sends home a message that if you're playing well, get you in the team and you kind of deserve that place. I think profile-wise, he's probably more of a natural fit as a player to just hang in the box and be happy without many touches. Mbappe is somebody who is so good, and he knows he's so good. He wants to drop in, he wants to get touches of the ball, and sometimes that might be to, quote-unquote, to the detriment of the team, because obviously some coaches are very systematic. But, long-term, Mbappe is the player who you want down and optimise maximally. But for this tournament, I'd go and maybe bring him on as a substitute.
I would as well. I think it's one of those ones where they are playing well. They look very competent, and it's weird. Mbappe's got over 40 goals. It feels, sacrilege to say it, but I think that's his shirt, is it not? Do you not agree? You're not sure, eh?
It's really tough to say.
To your point about the second goalkeeper, if they get to the final, it could be that one we're going, all right.
And I mean, I think Mbappe is in a situation now where he doesn't want to come in now. And imagine Real Madrid lose the first game that he comes back, and then all these question marks come. Are they better without him? We don't want that to happen to Mbappe. But at the same time, I almost think he is going to play eventually, so do you not want to kind of bed him in as quickly as possible? Alonso is a new... Maybe if it was a different coach, the same coach, as last season, it's a different story. But because Alonso is new here, he wants to see how Mbappe can fit into the system. I think because Kylian will eventually be in the team, you want to get him involved as quickly as possible.
You can't bench one of the best players in the world when he's fit. Come on, Kylian. And my boy as well. He needs to play. He's going to play.
Will the shape change if he does come in?
Well, that's my one question mark, right? Because I still have major doubts about the balance between himself and Vinicius Jr. because of the positions that they like to kind of take up on the pitch. And I think of Gonzalo Garcia, he loves to stay in the box. With the other two, they like to drift onto the left. They like to kind of get on the ball. That's the dynamic that I think Ancelotti really struggled to solve last season, and I think it'll be a big challenge for Alonso to find. But I think if you can get that right, Real Madrid could be in for a really special season.
$1 million question, isn't it? How do you get the best out of Mbappe and Vinicius?
Yeah. Can I say this about Alonso, though, right? Because I think when a new manager comes in, we always talk about players he's going to bring in, but I think it's really important that he also can improve the players that he takes over. And I think when you look at this team, we touched on Güler, obviously, but Fran Garcia on the left has had a new lease of life under him. Maybe it's because of the formation change. And there was another one as well, too. Chouameni as well, too. I think he's massively improved him. Fede, I think it was really good under Ancelotti. But I think those three players in particular, Chouameni, Güler, and Garcia, are clear evidence that Alonso has come in and improved players. And I think for any new manager, that's a big ask.
Okay. Yeah, well, I mean, the energy from Mbappe as well, you saw, even though he's been ill, was impressive. So maybe if he's going to make Mbappe better, then teams
I'll tell you, he's not going to make better. Rodrigo, another game without even seeing the pitch.
Yes, very true. Interesting stuff. Okay. So, the final game of the round of 16 saw Borussia Dortmund faced Mexican side Monterrey in Atlanta. Now, Monterrey were led by 39-year-old Sergio Ramos, who scored in the opening game of the tournament against Inter and would provide some last-minute drama in this one.
Borussia Dortmund, led by Niko Kovac against Monterrey of Mexico. The last day or so, we've learned to expect the unexpected. Guirassy, Adeyemi, Guirassy! Brilliant, brilliant goal for Borussia Dortmund. They sliced them apart. Set away by Rierson with no help at the moment. It's arriving though, and it arrives in the shape of Guirassy, who makes it two. Same combination. Away by Zula, but they also given time and space again, and you can't do that. Kobel has to react once more, deflected on the way. Gross thought about tossing it in there, but will combine here with Adeyemi, and they've opened them up. The hat-trick's coming, no! Andrada with a fine save. Verona making a nice angle here. Up against Sula, finds the cross, and Svensson didn't. Betterami! The ideal start to the second half. Monterrey, never out of it, are now very much alive. Canales. Oh, and they've got it right here. It's Corona with another opportunity here for Monterrey. Well, he's feeling hard done by that Sula impeded him. Ocampos. Aguirre searching ball. Oh! Sergio Ramos wide, and Kobel was left hoping and praying.
So Dortmund have caught us by surprise a little bit a few times in this tournament with how they've altered their tactics without actually making many personnel changes. And you can see it here. We're going to have a touch on a different switch-up when it came to the front line. So these are the two teams. And if we move it forward, what we're going to see is the lineup from the last game against Ulsan HD. And what you can see here is Adeyemi over here with Svensson, and Job, Bellingham and Guirassy here are playing together as pairs. And the one change that was made in this game was that Couto came on, Ryerson moved forward, into the right wing-back position from the centre-back position. So these are the average positions from today's game. And you can see a big change. Job moving over to that left half space, all being well, there we go. And Svensson all left alone on that left-hand side, but crucially, a lovely little double act in the middle here with Guirassy and Adeyemi playing. And Adeyemi got 2 assists, Guirassy got 2 goals, and they linked up brilliantly, didn't they, Lias?
Yeah, absolutely. I think just kind of like you said, Niko Kovac has shown some remarkable tactical flexibility. And if we look at a few of the clips, today the decision was to go for a front two. And I think it's really old-fashioned in terms of you have the guy in Guirassy who's going to drop deep, he's going to kind of hold players off, get players involved, and then Adeyemi, who is one of the quickest players in world football, stretched the back line so many times that on a different day he might have gotten a few goals. However, we know Adeyemi's finishing isn't always the most reliable, but I really thought that it caused Monterrey major problems, and in Guirassy as well too. You see in this instance, this is the goal obviously, but look at how close Guirassy and Adeyemi are. They're practically on top of each other. Quick interplay between the two of them. Like I said, great center forward play from Guirassy, who's proving to be one of the more reliable goal scorers around Europe. And this was another one as well, too. A very different goal, obviously. I think Jules will talk about it. But Adeyemi, remarkable speed to get in behind, set up Guirassy, and a really, really nice finish as well, too. And on a different day, honestly, Guirassy could have finished with 3 or 4 goals. Again, great play from Adeyemi. Guirassy waiting in there. Obviously, there was another chance as well, too. But Guirassy could have finished with 4 goals. But I was really impressed with the decision to go with the 2 of them. And I thought they linked up pretty well.
Yeah, Monterrey moved to a back 3, which they did in that first game against Inter Milan. But it was sort of the pace of those two together. And Guirassy now, just to touch on him for a second, that's 12 goals in the last 10 games, 37 goals overall. And in this game, won 5 of his aerial duels, had 50 touches. Adeyemi only had 23 touches, so you could see that it was get him and then Adeyemi off you go. Guirassy is someone that people don't really talk about much, but 37 goals in the season, that's all right, isn't it?
I mean, it's incredible. I think when you're looking at him, there's so many teams that need a number 9, and you don't really hear his name in some of these conversations. We were actually speaking before we started filming, and it doesn't make sense to Lies or myself in the sense that he can kind of do a bit of everything. Obviously, he has a moment in his game where he might miss an easy chance, but for me, I think that's getting into those positions and taking those shots is a bigger green flag than most. You got so many expensive big money moves, and those strikers can't get in those areas close to goal. They don't get the shots off, and the raw numbers that they're scoring are far less as a result of that. Your finishing will average out across the course of a season in general. The fact that he can do it in the air, he can do it in transition, he can do it against a low block, especially working with another striker or by himself. You kind of got all of those facets together.
And he can do it in the Champions League as well too. He's the joint top scorer Rafinha this season. He scored against the best teams in the world. I think he scored a hat-trick against Barcelona in the Champions League. For me, I can't understand it. Maybe the age of 29, but I feel like if you're a team that's just needing someone to get you over the edge, like an Arsenal, for example, could you do a lot worse than inquiring for a Guirassy? He could be the final piece that kind of gets you to the objectives.
Yep, very, very true. But of course, he's at Dortmund and he's doing very, very well. You wanted to touch on the goals again because it was interesting. They only had 6 shots. Yeah. And they had 4 big chances, Dortmund, and Monterrey had more possession as well. Why did you want to touch on the 2 goals? We're going
Just to break down a little bit the 2 goals, and the first one especially because we saw the end of it in the clip that Lies showed, but it's a wonderful team goal, really. Every outfield player touches the ball from the beginning of it, and you see that they recover the ball with a very aggressive counter-pressing to start with. Look at them chasing that ball, hunting it. They play long, Monterrey. It goes back to your centre-back, and then from there you're going to build up slowly, and we split it up because
there's 20 guys.
Yeah, there's 20 passes. That's not them in real life. Every outfield player, as I said, from the 3 centre-backs to your wide players to your front 2, everybody's going to touch the ball. You're going to move the ball from left with that great ball from Ben Sebaini there, that switch to the right, and then again grows from the right to the left with his left foot. So you move that defence all around the place, and then finally the killer ball is the one from Ben Sebaini, really here. Towards the front 2, and then great play between Adeyemi and Guirassy. So 20 passes, every outfield player touches the ball. And then the second one is completely different, as we've been saying. We circled there Guirassy and Joe Bellingham, who are going to run 50 yards or 60 yards behind the pace of Adeyemi, and then still have the composure in Guirassy to finish that counter-attack and that goal in transition. So 2 very different goals that shows all the qualities of this team.
Yeah, and it's interesting. We're going to predict the games moving forward. That simplicity of having that pace in behind, we saw it in the Man City game. That could come to the fore again. We've got to touch on Monterrey a little bit. We saw Ramos with that last-minute header. He's a magnet in the box. It's amazing. But there was another player, and this is what the great thing about the tournament, is being able to sort of see these players and go, hang on a minute, this lad's decent. Amir, who was that player that was decent today?
Well, my player is Diossi, and Diosso was so impressive in the game prior to this one. He scored a ridiculous goal, so he's a little bit on my mind in this for that reason. But if you go through some of the clips, it wasn't just his long shooting, which obviously he tried a few attempts from, but he's this box-to-box player, and he was really impressive. I think what stood out to me was just how quick he was in trying to recover and back press. And Dortmund don't have slow players, they have really quick players. He's getting back here, he's dueling really well, and he's still trying to find the pass to one of his players after that. But it wasn't just that, it was his contribution to attack. He's a central midfielder, but you see him in wing positions, carrying the ball really well. In Europe's top leagues, you want ball carriers, and look at that, electric
that was
stride.
Deflected as well.
Yeah, deflected, and look how much pace it took off it.
Yeah. I think this is the moment where you said, that's my goat.
Word for word, that's my goal, yeah. And look, you see him keeping up with Adeyemi, who's one of the fastest players in the world. Not only keeping up with him, but dueling with him, winning the ball back, and then the composure to then make the right decision after that. And look, a nice little dink pass in behind. I don't want to say, look, he's the perfect player by any stretch of the imagination. But
he is your GOAT.
He is my GOAT.
That's a really good spot, Amir, seriously.
25.
Yeah, he's 25 years old. We were just talking a little bit about the style of players that people want now. He really suits that big space midfielder. He's got the technical quality. He's got the dueling ability. I do think, if I'm being, a little bit more balanced, he probably steps out a little bit too much, and he doesn't protect.
Why are you spoiling it now? Poor bloke. The tears have just dried. And then
he's my GOAT, but
he was about to convince Man United to sign him for 30
no,
million.
by the way, that's so good.
yeah.
But yeah, just he doesn't sit in front of the defence all the time. Yeah. But I think that's something you can coach, especially if you've not had all of that experience in one of the top teams in Europe. But I really do think he's a really impressive player and one to watch. And this competition is for players like that to kind of get that platform.
Okay. 10% on its way to you. Joe Bellingham got booked in this one. The holder zone team's going to be devastated when it comes to the montages and the previews to this, because the Bellingham derby was on its way, but sadly it will not be. How big of a loss is that for Borussia Dortmund going into that game against Real Madrid?
I think it's massive because he's played in different positions in the start of the tournament. He's been very, very useful to have for all his work rate, for everything that he brings with the ball, without the ball. We talked about complementarity for Real Madrid earlier, but it's the same here with Mecha and Gross in that midfield, with Guirassy, with Svensson on the left, he plays on the left, or on the right with Jan Couto or Rieson, whoever is there. And he's proven to already be a few weeks only in his Dortmund career to be very important. So, and I don't know if we will see the challenge again. He didn't have to make that challenge, and he knew he was on a yellow. And I know he's a young player and he will learn a lot from it. But he also knows there's a game against his brother potentially on the line, and for him to make that mistake, we find it a little bit disappointing. And
so, just to say to here, in terms of that midfield, then, Job has played in that left channel. He's played up with Guirassy, but we saw it work really well at Adeyemi and Guirassy, as we've shown. What change would you make for that midfield? Sabitzer came on in this one, but you've also got Brandt, you've got Chukwuemeka, you've got Emre Can as well. Where would you go?
I think I'd go Sabitzer in terms of just the work rate and the engine. But the problem with Job, not Jude, but it's the body as well, too. He's physical. He wins his duels. I know he obviously gets a foul there, but it's the fact that he likes to get around. And then he has the attacking quality on top of that. I think Sabitzer can mitigate that loss a little bit, but it won't be the same. And the fact that we're even talking about Job in such a short time in his Dortmund career is absolutely remarkable, to make the jump from Championship to Dortmund like he has. One
thing I'll actually mention on that is, I thought Juventus were impressive against Real Madrid for that kind of system and shape that they did play in. It fizzled out a little bit towards the end of the game, but that 5-3-2 shape with your two men up top and how they kind of link together, Guirassy and Adeyemi are perfect for that. As impressive as Job's been, when he's played in a 3, I don't think that system is the perfect one to kind of try and counteract this Real Madrid side. Okay. And if you're playing with the midfield 3, you don't necessarily need that complete attacking quality that Job might provide. I think a Sabitzer, like Lies mentioned, makes sense because in my head, and obviously they might not do this because they have a good attacking quality, but in my head, I think setting up in that very solid 5-3-2 shape with maybe 3 slightly more pragmatic midfielders and then relying on that counter-attacking quality and that hold-up quality
can really hurt them.
Would be a really, that's a really nice pairing that, doesn't necessarily need Job's profile as good as of a player he is.
Right, watch out for the speedboat. Okay, we'll that was Adeyemi I was talking about. So, right, it's time to predict. It's time to get ourselves in trouble here. We're going to go through the quarterfinals now, one by one, and then all the way through, and we're going to pick our winner. In particular, actually, I might sit on the fence and let the boys do this one.
No, you don't want to end up in a compilation.
I just do the throw. What do you think, guys? That's what I'm going to do. So, here you have your quarterfinals. Let's kick off with Fluminense against Al Hilal. The back 3 of Fluminense with Thiago Silva, do you think that's something they should stick with? Obviously, prior to that, they hadn't done that. Against an Al Hilal side who have just beaten Manchester City. By the way, the team scoring first in the last round of games, in 7 of 8, went through. Can you name me the one team that scored first that didn't go through, Amir?
Trivia. No, I'm passing to the trivia, man.
Oh, you should know, Amir. You should know this one.
Yes.
Oh, is it Manchester City?
It is Manchester City.
I didn't hear that again.
Yesterday they lost.
No, I forgot
He's already forgotten it,
So, Al Hilal against Fluminense. How do you see that one panning?
I'm just not sure if Al Hilal can play again as well as they did against City in every sense of the word, but if they can, I still think they're too strong for Fluminense.
I think Al Hilal have looked really good against sides that they're kind of coming up against as the underdog. underdog, but against Salzburg, I thought they struggled a little when they kind of were supposed to be the protagonists. And Fluminense, I think they did really, really well in terms of game planning against Mamelodi, and then also on top of that, Inter. The one thing for me maybe is I think that back three with Thiago Silva in there was really good against two out-and-out center forwards. But with Al Hilal, they like to play Marcos Leonardo, so it is a different kind of kettle of fish. But I think Al Hilal too much quality, so I go with them.
Yeah, look, I would probably lean towards. Well, I think whatever team has less of the ball will win. And why I say that is because I think Al Hilal are a team who, look, as much quality as they do have in their individuals, might struggle to break down a really strong five at the back defence, because I think they'll match up, Fluminense will match up the numbers in that Al Hilal side, especially under Inzaghi, who kind of play with those wing backs pushing forward. And if Fluminense do sit in, will they get that goal? I'm not sure, but they'll be really hard to break down. So I'm going to lean towards Fluminense in this instance, just to be a little bit different, to be honest. But Al Hilal, a brilliant team and better individual quality.
Do you know what? I'm going to do my prediction. Fluminense. I actually think Fluminense. My gut's going with Fluminense. I'm going to make gut calls here. Palmeiras against Chelsea, the Estaval derby. Jules, your boy Piqueres will not be playing, suspended. The left back for Palmeiras. Gomez, the centre back, of course, got sent off as well. Does that make it impossible for you for Palmeiras?
Not impossible, but I think that affects them a lot. And I think this Chelsea team is not perfect by far, as we saw against Benfica, where they were in control and somehow still managed to be taken to extra time. I still think that on their day they will be too strong for Palmeiras.
Okay.
I think the Caicedo misses a big one, because you talk about the suspensions for Palmeiras. Caicedo might be their most important player, but I think on quality, I favor Chelsea. And I really haven't been that impressed by Palmeiras. They've fair play to getting to this point, but I don't think they've been absolutely brilliant this entire tournament.
Yeah, and Palmeiras, Chelsea?
Yeah, I'm going to lean towards Chelsea again, just for player quality. I think the picture of the game will look similar, with Palmeiras trying to sit in and Chelsea trying to break them down. But if that's the case, there's still good attacking quality, especially in the wings, especially with Neto sort of having that form that he's in, to put that away. So. OK,
PSG versus Bayern. I'm going to go with PSG. Bit too much. Jules, are you joining me?
I mean, you want to ask me, really?
Jules, skip you.
Bayern every day, 3-0.
Leas and Umi?
I mean, Jules has been saying Bayern is the team that scares him the most out of all of them.
I think the winner of this one wins the whole thing.
Yeah, that's interesting. I think PSG at the moment are the most complete team in Europe. They're the best team in Europe. I would be shocked. I give Bayern a lot of respect. They've been very good, but I give PSG the
Agreed. I'll go PSG.
OK, and then Real Madrid against Dortmund. All of these ties, by the way, they're not sort of 70-30 splits here. It feels very like 60-40, very tight. And Dortmund, they could hurt Real Madrid. Again, you would imagine Real Madrid would have maybe a little bit too much, but this will be maybe their toughest test so far, isn't it?
Yeah, I think I just want to be contrarian sometimes.
I like that.
Well, I will say, out of all of these ties, the underdog team that I think has the best chance of going through is Dortmund in this instance. I've not said Fluminense, but I think Dortmund have a better chance than Madrid, especially if they do play in that 5-3-2 and play on that quality of Adeyemi.
OK.
I go Real Madrid, man.
Yeah.
Let's see, though. Mbappe, is it going to be him who delivers? But I go Real Madrid.
Yeah, me too.
Same again. Right, so then we've got Al Hilal against Chelsea.
We're going all the way.
Yep, quickly, really quickly. Al Hilal against Chelsea. Shout.
Chelsea.
OK.
Chelsea.
And PSG against Real Madrid.
Ooh.
The Mbappe derby. PSG.
PSG. So we then have we've got a Chelsea PSG final. What are we saying?
I pray for a PSG win.
If Mbappe, you guys are moving on quick. If Mbappe loses to PSG again, PSG are going all the way, man.
European champions and world champions.
Jules is having an amazing summer.
No, but listen, it's Garcia versus PSG.
Yeah.
World champion, I can see already.
Jules is going to have an amazing summer, I'll tell you that. I think PSG are going all the way.
Well, yeah, the one thing we do know, there is going to be loads of great action coming on DAZN. It's not just the football. There's a bit of boxing knocking about as well, as Jack Catterall returns to the ring in Manchester, aiming to bounce back with a statement win against the unbeaten Harlem Eubank in a thrilling all-British welterweight clash. Saturday, July the 12th, WBC lightweight champion Shakur Stevenson defends his crown against undefeated Mexican star William Zepeda in a stacked fight night from New York City. Saturday, July the 19th, we've got Alexander Usyk against Daniel Dubois, the big one, running it back in London for the undisputed heavyweight title in one of the summer's biggest rematches. And on the 16th of August, that's a Saturday, rising heavyweight star Moses Itoma headlines his first pay-per-view event against the legendary Dylan White in Riyadh. It's youth versus experience in a high-stakes British showdown. And all of those, of course, are only on the DAZN app. And then we've got the football. We've just previewed it, and you've got to watch these games. They're going to be absolutely sensational. Kicks off with Fluminense versus Al Hilal. That's at 8 p.m. on Friday. Palmeiras versus Chelsea at 2 a.m. on Saturday. Paris Saint-Germain versus Bayern Munich, 5 p.m. on Saturday. And Real Madrid versus Borussia Dortmund at 9 p.m. on Saturday. Stunning stuff. And of course, the final episode of The Press will be available for you all at 5 a.m. on Saturday. As I say, this was our penultimate show, and sadly, it's our final show with my right-hand man, or left-hand man, Julian Laurent, who's been absolutely sensational. Huge round of applause. Thank goodness you will never know how much I owe this man for saving me on my first ever job. Thank you, mate.
Thank you,
Love you very much. So that is all for today from The Press. It's on to the quarterfinals. We will see you again on Saturday morning here on the DAZN app.